Hey, by Manning here. Welcome to the Garden Report. Bucks 103-101 winners over the Celtics in Game 3.
Almost
What a
over.
game. It was grueling.
Yeah.
It was tough to watch. Fouls everywhere. Everybody had 5 fouls in this game. And Jrue Holiday committed the last one. And the refs had a decision. Was it a shooting foul or was it a rip-through on the floor? Bonus penalty, 2 shots with the Celtics down 3. And with 4 seconds to go in this game, they call the rip through. Smart stunned. He's got his hands on his head. The Celtics don't have a challenge there. They don't review it. Smart said he never even got an explanation. And what essentially ends up happening is he goes to the free throw line, makes the first to make it a 2-point game, misses the second on purpose. I think the Celtics got 3 tips on it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Horford finished it off by
Impressive.
getting it down, but it was a millisecond too late, and the Celtics lose this one. All eyes on the final seconds here. Your thoughts, Josue Pavon, on that whole sequence and the game as a whole, I guess.
It's a loaded question, Bobby, but I guess we'll start with that one play. I do think they got it wrong, and I'm disappointed that it wasn't a review. Like, the way things have been going throughout the course of the NBA playoffs, like I'm almost shocked that they didn't at least review it and then make that determination. I thought it deserved a review. I think a lot of the times it's easy to just, assume that he's trying to draw the foul and that's not really a foul, but you have to give it a look in that instance, right? Because it's the end of the game. It's obviously a crucial play. And I hate to say it, but I feel like, the fact that it was Marcus Smart sort of didn't work in his favor a bit. It didn't give the ref.
Then when I was watching in real time, I thought he was flopping for the foul.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. And I just think it was worth a look. And throughout the course of this playoffs, you've seen these guys look at almost everything, especially down the stretch, at the end of games. I talked about a couple of nights ago between the Grizzlies and the Warriors where they did the review and they still couldn't get it right. They just ended up doing a jump ball, which I wouldn't have liked, but I just really would have appreciated it. I thought it was worth a review, and that's too bad. But that's not the reason why they lost, right, Bobby? There's a lot of other things. I mean, Jason Tatum going ice cold. I mean, the way they played in that third quarter after halftime, just constantly having to play uphill, trying to make that comeback over and over again, and it worked. There was a part it was a 2-minute mark, I want to say, in the fourth quarter when you were like, man, I don't know how the Celtics are going to pull this one out, and I'm like, well, if they keep going to guys not named Giannis, they're giving the Celtics a shot, and that's exactly what happened. You open that opportunity for Al Horford to take matters into his own hands, and one heck of a fourth quarter from him, one heck of a fourth quarter from Jalen. He wouldn't stop attacking the rim or getting to the free throw line, either one converting those plays. I think it's encouraging that whole fourth quarter if you're the Celtics going into game 4, but it's really, I just hope these guys are going to have short-term memory because that was a golden opportunity to steal one here and grab a 2-1 lead going into game 4.
Celtics led with under a minute to go here. They took a lead. Giannis scored going through Grant inside, got within 1, and Holiday bumped through Tatum. Another physical play, just countless ones in this game. They could have gone either way. No call there. Or Holiday ends up finishing over Tatum for what ended up being the game-winning bucket there with the Bucks down. And Celtics had their opportunities, as you talk about. Connaughton misses the wide-open 3 playing off Giannis. Giannis misses in the lane. Yeah, so they're holding defensively. They get 2 great looks for Brown that would have put them up 4, and then Grant gets an offensive rebound that gets Smart a follow-up look there. So the opportunities you miss after overcoming a 13-point deficit at the start of the fourth were incredible, and credit goes to Horford, who pushed his own 7-3 run there, just spotting up, taking jumpers and nailing them. Brown forced the issue in transition on his way to 27 points with Jason Tatum struggling. So you feel good coming out of this one about the Celtics' ability to stick with this Milwaukee team, even when they're down double digits.
Definitely.
But they dig themselves holes, and they really allowed the Bucks to open up their transition game, which is where they got buried by Giannis.
Yeah, I mean, you just said it perfectly. Like, those open shots that the Bucks missed, like, that was sort of like those are constant daggers that you avoided. And yeah, to the Celtics' credit, they were able to come back, countless times in that second half. But at the end of the day, that's not the recipe for a win, right? That's the recipe to steal a win, right? And when you're the Celtics and you're constantly having to do that, the margin of error gets so thin. And when your star player is ice cold, which is, we've seen this before from Tatum, but man, I feel like this happens like every couple of months or so.
That was the worst possession down the stretch, pushing off Matthews, shooting a mid-range.
At that point in the game, you're like, you had your hand in the comeback, but you still don't feel satisfied. I felt like he was just waiting for that one big shot, that one big play that would put him back into, feeling like, okay, now I can attack and at least give my team or at least try to close this one out. But it just never happened. But man, you look at guys stepping up, Al Horford. I mean, the depth of this team, Jaylen Brown turning it on in that fourth quarter. So, look, there's a lot of good things to take away from this game, but the Celtics have to find a way to stick with it, have to find a way to be consistent on the defensive end of the floor and not let the Bucks force you to do things on offense that you don't want to do. I think that was a lot of what was happening.
We just named all the reasons that the Celtics lost. I
there
think
you
they're
go,
right up
guys.
there with the smart foul. But Ime
Go through the
Udoka
list.
was furious with the officiating after the game.
Yeah.
And this goes back to his mantra of making the officiating consistent across both teams, so the way that you play is understood on both sides.
Right.
And I think that factored into his frustration as well as the play itself. Here's what he had to say about the smart play as well as the officiating as a whole after this game.
It was a foul. It was a foul. He caught the ball. He's turning it into a shot. Both feet set. You can't say that's a sweep like that. You're going into a shot. So poor call. Poor no call. He was sweeping it like, yeah. But you can clearly see it on. I saw it in person, but also on the film. I just went and looked at. It's a shot. He's curling into a shot. He's getting fouled on the way up. Bad missed call. Yeah, you're weighing foul call versus time and score, and we used ours on the block charge on Grant, which would have been his fifth, and would have made a 2-point game. So we like to save it more toward the end, but their explanation is if they don't fall down, they don't call it. So I teach my guys to flop a little more.
So I think Ime's going to get his first NBA fine for criticizing the officials.
Well deserved. He went in there knowing that was going to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if he said in the locker room, "Look, guys, I'm going to set the tone here. I'm going to say what happened between the ref and I, the conversation we had," because he knew the question was coming. And I think if you're, Ime Udoka, that's what you're supposed to do. That's good. You're supposed to defend your players. The way he told Grant Williams not to get into it with the officials, to get these guys to stay focused, I think that's good. I agree with all that. It's his job to speak for these guys, and hopefully that sets the tone in Game 4. And defensively, especially with the Celtics, I mean, you want to still be in that physical matchup with the Bucks, right? Because the Bucks aren't going to let up. They're going to continue to bring that same intensity. But you want to play smart. You want to give the referees a reason to, not to give you the benefit of the doubt in some of these 50-50 bang-bang plays. Because, I mean, if you look at the past, the course of a best-of-7 series, I mean, we've seen the officials, it's sort of like an unspoken, like, okay, we're going to favor the Celtics a bit, because we didn't do it right the first time, Maybe that happens a bit, maybe not, but I think Ime putting it out there and exposing that conversation he had with the officials, I think that's irrelevant. I'm glad he did that. I really am.
I think we all agree on the smart play. They got a tough break there. In terms of the overall officiating, I think the tough thing that they're trying to get a handle on is how they can defend Giannis. And in fact, I asked, how do you kind of pick your spots in terms of challenging one of those fouls to try to get one back against them? We all saw the one where Giannis just barreled into Grant behind him, and it looked like it could have been Giannis' fourth foul. They don't challenge that one. Ime instead challenges Grant's offensive foul later, and then you don't have a challenge for that final smart play there. Yeah. So that ended up really being a challenge for Udoka, and the team as a whole rolling with the punches of Giannis just barreling into them. And I don't know what you do. He scores 42 points here. He picks his matchups, and it feels like Giannis finally figured them out. And among all the things we talked about out of this game, reasons the Celtics lost, that's my number one. Giannis took over this game, especially in the third quarter, and then he made enough plays late for them to hold on and win.
But I feel like it should have been a landslide victory, right? Like, I feel like when Giannis has it going like this, it's contagious. And to a certain extent, I guess it was. But the Celtics nearly survived it, and especially when you have your best player.
He was doing it on his own.
Cold. Right. So I think, if you're Milwaukee, you want other guys to step up, and maybe that does happen in Game 4. So Celtics have to prepare for that as well. Like, maybe they get hot from behind the arc, and maybe those shots start to fall. But I just don't want this series to start being about the officiating. I don't want it to be the Celtics are getting robbed on these calls. But
one of their old bad habits from earlier in the year.
I feel like out of all the sides here, both teams have adjusted. I think the officials need to adjust before they go into Game 4. Like, they really
this game was out of control.
They need to review this game over and over again. I wouldn't be surprised if the NBA gets involved. And I'm not saying that they're going to start throwing out fines or anything to these officials, but there's a conversation to be had, and they have to sort of revisit this whole, Giannis's approach and how a team could survive it. Like, what did the Celtics do wrong? I think that's a conversation worth having. And I think they should, and the NBA should get involved. But we'll see. We're not going to probably hear about this stuff until later or after the fact. But hopefully, we see things differently, because I don't. Yeah, there was a couple of calls where I feel like they were late with Giannis, but the way they've been defending Giannis, I don't think it was, I don't think the Celtics was very differently in their approach in containing Giannis. They just didn't get the calls. They were a bit late, and a lot of those 50-50 plays just went to Milwaukee's favor. Maybe that's a small slice of the pie here as to why the Celtics lost, but yeah, it didn't help the Celtics' chances.
Celtics lose 103-101. Feels like they lost an opportunity to really put the Bucks on their heels here in Milwaukee. They'll get another chance in Game 4 on Monday night. We'll be back here, Josue Pavon, Ashrod Blakely, and myself. Of course, show love to HelloFresh. Big reason we're out here, HelloFresh.com/playoff16. Get 16 free meals, 3 free gifts, tons of options, dozens and dozens of them, meats, veggies, variety of choices to suit your needs. And it's going to show up right on your doorstep. With ice, fresh, ready to eat,
So good.
ready to be chopped up, spiced up, thrown in the
some
stove.
good ingredients.
Yeah.
All right, some great ingredients, some stuff that you don't even use, that you don't use on a reg is coming your way.
We'll talk Jason Tatum's struggle, some of the Celtics who let them down in this loss, Tatum among them. In our next video, go check that out on Celtics All Access, and check out our coverage here in Milwaukee on CLNSmedia.com, as well as CLNS Media on YouTube. For Josue Pavon, I'm Bobby Manning. Good night.